This I would like to start our City of Prescott CDBG Citizens Advisory Committee, March 19th, 2025. And I'd like to call our board to order, and I will start down at the left-hand side. Your name, please.
John Paris here.
Ginger Cutting here.
Janie Evans here.
Debbie Savoini here.
Jim Howell here.
And Marianne Suttles, we're missing one member. She might come in later. And if so, we'll recognize that. But right now, we're starting with the 6 that we have. All right, discussion and action items. Michael.
The first set of items are the minutes. You do have 2 sets of minutes. One is for the subcommittee that met on March 6th, and the other set of minutes is from the February 19th CAC meeting.
So I'm going to take those separately. I need a motion to accept the minutes from the February 19th, 2025 meeting.
Madam Chair, I move to, Ginger Cutting, move to approve the minutes of the February 19th meeting.
I need a second.
John Paris, I second that.
All those in favor, raise your hand. Or any question? And the motion passes. The second group of minutes, I need a motion for the March 6th, 2025 subcommittee meeting. So would that be the subcommittee?
That is correct, Madam Chair. The subcommittee, March 6th.
And Jim Howell will be recusing myself from voting on that. I was absent.
All right.
I will second that motion. This is Janie Evans.
So, Janie, you're going to move we accept those minutes from March 6th.
Yes.
And I will second it, Marianne Suttles. And with that, there really is just the 2 of us voting on that.
That's correct.
Raise your hand, up 2 of us up for the March 6th subcommittee meeting, and that takes care of those minutes.
That's correct.
So now we're moving to the discussion and possible action from the advisory CDBG program for 2025.
That's correct, Madam Chair. Michael McGinnis with Community Development, your CDBG coordinator. And this CAC meeting today, we will be looking at the CAC subcommittee recommendations for funding applicants for program year 2025. So I have it split up in these 2 slides. The first slide will be covering the recommendations from the subcommittee regarding public service. Just some background information before we get into the discussion and possible action from the committee is we based our total amount from HUD at $250,000. And let me see, I might have a slide in here that might show the breakdown. I have it in an Excel that we'll pull up in just a minute. But we based it on $250,000. That estimate is the same estimate we used last year. We don't have a number from HUD yet. Usually HUD lets us know how much will be allocated in, March, April timeframe. So it could be, any week now we get an estimate. So we don't wait for HUD. We use this estimate of $250,000, and knowing that 20% of that $250,000 goes to administrative costs, basically my salary, 15% goes to public service, which we'll be looking at first, and then the rest of it goes to construction projects. So those are the kind of the numbers that you're working with. And with that, public service is on the board. Madam Chair, it's open for discussion and whatnot.
As a subcommittee, we met, and firstly, with the public service, we dropped some of the lower ranking organizations to try to concentrate with the limited amount of money that we did have, and took those rating averages and looked at those, and that's how we came up with the dollar amount.
And just to piggyback off that, Madam Chair, exactly right. If you look at your packets, has the PowerPoints that is showing up on the board, you see the average, and the highest average was People Who Care at 92. That's an average of all 7 committee members ranking which activity or public service activity they thought was most appropriate for this funding. And then just going down the list. And the top 3 were People Who Care, New Horizons, Wrapped in Love. Also in your packet and on the slide is the rest of the public service applicants with their averages. I included the comments that I found on your ranking sheets. Not all of them. If there was some redundancy, I didn't include it more than once, but just to give you an idea what the comments were, they're on that farthest column to my right, I guess.
So, Michael, what I would like to take us back up to...
Real quick, Madam Chair, Ginger had a question.
What I'd like to take us back up to what the subcommittee suggested, and then open that up to board members. And I'd like to hear from each of them. We've all had a little bit of a preview as to what this is, and just be aware of the amount that we're looking at. And that amount was somewhere around $37,500.
That's correct, Madam Chair.
So with that, I will take the next board member.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ginger Cutting. My numbers are a little different. I'm not certain where we got that the Wrapped in Love was requesting $5,392. I understood they requested $18,000 when we met. That's the information that I had, and I agree with the $15,000 for New Horizons. I think that People Who Care should be $15,000 equal, and then I think the difference should go to the Wrapped in Love because I think that number is off.
Any other?
Is that user error on me? Is that right?
This is John Paris. According to our original sheet, they did request $5,392. Oh, they did. And they matching funds was the 18. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, John.
Yes.
And just to continue that, we cannot reward applicants more than they requested.
I was wrong. I apologize.
So, Ms. Cutting, you're good with the subcommittee on the public service? Do you have any other input?
Thank you. No, I am absolutely fine with the subcommittee's review.
John?
This is John Paris. Yes, I am fine with the public service amounts.
Janie?
I approve the amounts that was requested.
And being part of the subcommittee with Janie, that was our due diligence. Debbie Savawini
I agree that of the amounts.
and Jim.
Jim Howell, I agree with the recommended allocations for each of the 3. And it was very close to my ratings, my top three. So I'm going to kick the can down the road. I'm going to make a motion that we approve the recommendations of the subcommittee for the publics in the public service area.
I need a second.
Ginger Cutting, I second that.
All right, we've got a motion, second, discussion. All those in favor, raise their hand. And then I believe, Michael, this is taken care of.
That is correct.
So we'll just fold that page and move on to construction.
Right, which is great. So I think this, with construction, it's going to get a little bit more complicated. But I think we're all going to be able to make it through. Let me first go to the slides. This is also in your packet. And I'll talk about the center first. The center applied for chairs and tables, and some going back and forth with HUD, a couple different phone calls, see if we could make this work, justify it somehow through CDBG. It just, at the end of the day, it wasn't going to work. HUD really wants to see with these construction projects, which this would fall under, a fixed asset, really, if anything. So also brought up, well, if that didn't work, what about the kitchen appliance, the steamer or whatever that Meals on Wheels was requesting? They said that was different because that's going to be fixed to the kitchen, that would be appropriate for CDBG funding. So it's better to find out now than down the road. So that one is off. So take a minute, Madam Chair. Committee on those, I have a spreadsheet we can pull up so we can kind of figure out what the committee wants to do with this money, the $7,500 that needs to be allocated somewhere.
So, Michael, excuse me, at this time, I need to recuse myself because I sit on the board of the Adult Center, so I could not vote, so I cannot vote to change it.
Right, the Adult Center is off. I wouldn't worry about that, Madam Chair. It's been taken off.
So I'm back. I'm back in the run.
You're back. You're
Okay.
back. So there is no use for that.
All right. I need a little direction from you, and I believe the board does too. How are we going to start with this?
Well, we can go down. My suggestion is to go down each line item. There's not that many. See where the funding is compared to what they requested, and have discussion about that for a few minutes. See where it kind of goes, and then we can pull up the spreadsheet, which has all these numbers on there as well, and as a committee start manipulating those monies to fit the $165,000 is my recommendation.
So I'm going to start us. You got 7,500. You can also take this money and look at it individually as to some of the organizations that we have funded. You could give it all. You could split it up half. There's different ways we can do it. I think it would be nice to sort of get from the board, how do you see distributing that 7.5? Let's just have a start and a discussion from it. And I'll take, thank you, Ginger.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to make a suggestion. I think we should look at what was the subcommittee had nominated first, because I have some concerns about what the initial subcommittee came up with on this. And then we might have more money afterwards, after discussion, that we would have to divvy up. So I think if we start there first and then keep a pot, if you will, that 7,500 would be in the pot, and then we could distribute that afterwards. That's a suggestion.
Any other discussion?
I second that.
Right. So with that, that's just a consensus We don't need to vote on that. A consensus that we will start and go down that and then go back to that 7.5 to decide what to do.
And Madam Chair, if I could start this off, Jim Howell, I want to recuse myself on the Meals and Wheels discussion item for me personally because I'm a volunteer there.
And Jim, we appreciate that. So let's discuss the Meals on Wheels first and then move on down to the next applicant so we can get Jim back in the discussion. So I want to start with somebody on Meals and Wheels.
And just for, they requested 23,430. They have some matching funds, 3,200, and the subcommittee came to a funding amount of 11,750.
And if I can add to that, as a subcommittee, we looked at other funding. We looked at what they requested. We looked at some matching funding, and that was discussed, and then we went from there. So it's open. I'm going to put this out, and you guys are going to have to be part of it. Ginger?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ginger Cutting. So I don't know if I should recuse myself. I was a past board member of Meals on Wheels, no longer associated with Meals on Wheels.
How long ago was that? Okay. Yeah, let's go ahead and play it safe and recuse
So
yourself from
we'll
this discussion.
pull you off. I think a year is a bit close. You still have a heart.
Better safe than sorry.
It's better safe than sorry. Protect them. Okay, we've dropped down to 5 of us.
4.
Jim? John?
Okay, John Paris, we're still talking about Meals on Wheels then. Worthy cause. Yeah, it seems like a lot of money for kitchen equipment, but when's the last time anybody bought a dishwasher? I mean, it's crazy. So I like Ginger's idea there. We go down these. I would love to say right now I'm giving more money, but I don't want to.
You can't count Ginger because she's recruited. So what's your feeling?
I think Meals on Wheels deserves a little bit more money. Do I want to say $7,500 more? No, I would say split that and go with $3,750 more for Meals on Wheels.
Okay, we can write it down. I suggest that we write it down and then come back because we've got a lot more to cover.
Everybody else?
I do too. Okay, good.
We'll take that number. All right. So, John, 37.5?
Right, that's half.
Okay. Janie, question involved? Want to listen to somebody? What's your feeling?
What's your question?
Oh, me?
Janie has to come up with something.
On Agape House?
No,
Have we
we're
moved
still Meals on Wheels.
Yes, I second that. I think since we're going with the pot analogy, where we're going to try to just keep, I'm just making a note, by perhaps Meals on Wheels is going to get 37,500, but we won't know until we get through all of it.
I can agree to that. Debbie?
Agreed.
All right. 5 have taken that and in agreement. Write that down, and we've taken care of Meals on Wheels.
Okay.
We'll be back.
We'll be back.
Okay, welcome back to the table, Jim and Ginger. We're now at Agape House.
Agape House requested $24,800 for their transitional housing here in Prescott. Majority of that cost is for HVAC. And the subcommittee, they do have some matching funds of $5,540. The subcommittee funded at $19,000. We do have a member of Agape House in the audience. for
How
the
nice
question.
to show up. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. We had requested, we had other funding, and we've come up with our recommendation. Discussion.
Madam Chair, Ginger Cutting, I do want to say that everything that we could provide to Agape House I felt was absolutely appropriate. I think that 19,000 will get them right to where they need to be for their improvements that they want to make.
I second that.
I think Agape's done a dynamite job. They come each year. They're getting bigger. They're taking care of more people. I possibly see some extra funding for them. So I see. I mean, it seems minimal, but another 1,000, another 1,500. It's still below what they requested, and they've certainly showed a track record. My suggestion.
I thought it was total.
Madam Chair, this is John Paris. Looking down, I'm looking ahead at the rest of the list. I think our top three on this were very, very appropriate. When we start getting down to 4, 5, and 6, I've got some questions that I would need somebody to answer before I would be willing to add beyond that.
And John, this is again a discussion, total discussion, and what we're having to do in such. So I do appreciate that. We're covered here. She's covered. Debbie,
Yes,
yes, what?
I'm sorry. I apologize. I was looking at all these figures and wasn't listening to the discussion.
The
Could you ask
total,
me again?
All right, we're coming down the list. We're still looking at what the subcommittee suggested. We still have that extra funding that's sitting out there. Your discussion, yes or no, skip it, move on down. You've got something else you want to look at. Just give us a little bit to move on.
I would recommend that we split the 75 and give Agape House another 3,700, 500.
Okay, write that down.
Madam Chair, this is John Paris. I wholeheartedly agree with that.
either my math is wrong or something's wrong, because we've decided to give them 19. They have other funding of 5540. That's only a difference of $500 from what they're requesting.
No.
They have other funding, we should, until we get to the bottom of this, we
Yes.
should not consider it
Right.
a done deal.
And Madam Chair, Ginger Cutting, I think sticking with that, where we're keeping that 7,500 in the pot until we get down to the bottom, because I think it's going to change.
Okay, Jim?
Jim Howell, I have a different approach. My proposal is there are 7 agencies. I would say cut the $7,500 7 ways, and everybody gets their pro rata share.
All right, that's open for discussion. We'll move on down the list as to, we still have some more from the subcommittee. So if we're doing this correctly, Boys and Girls Club, look what the subcommittee suggested. Any suggestions?
Boys and Girls Club requested $100,000 for a lot of different things on the parking lot adjacent to their property. It's city-owned property. The city does lease that property, as well as the Boys and Club facility to Boys and Girls Club. They wanted to update the park and do a bunch of different things. I believe, and correct me, Madam Chair and the subcommittee, if I'm wrong, the $35,000 was really meant for the fence, the cost of the fence. Also, speaking with Parks and Rec, the director, Joe Baines, this was something that the city is on board with, this type of improvement.
So we're at the Boys and Girls Club. You filled us in a little bit on Parks and Rec. And this was for the ADA compliant and other.
Right. Really, my understanding from the subcommittee was the $35,000 was strictly for the fence,
Okay.
for safety.
Discussion on City of Prescott
Well,
ADA.
we're on Boys and Girls Club.
Right.
I thought we finished with it.
No,
I'm sorry.
yeah, I'm sorry, Madam Chair. I confusing because the city has a bunch of different ones. So
Okay.
just talking about the city and their relationship with Boys and Girls Club.
Okay.
that-
Back to Boys and Girls Club.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Far be it from me to run the ship. Next, what's the discussion with Boys and Girls Club?
As I,
Madam
excuse me,
Let Debbie Savouini.
Debbie Savoini, as I recall that fence would put them in compliance with the national organization. And that's why I would be in favor of approving this $35,000.
All right, next.
Chair.
John?
This is John Paris. I agree. Thank you. Just a comment. Boys and Girls Club, a wonderful organization, so don't get me wrong on any of this. But every Tom, Dick, and Harry donates to Boys and Girls Club. I don't think they will have a problem getting more money. We, the subcommittee, has recommended $35,000 to be put towards the fencing. I'm okay with that. I just would hesitate to say, give them more.
Ginger?
Madam Chair, Ginger Cutting, I agree with the safety issue. I think that is, I'm surprised there was no other funding in there because I too believe that the Boys and Girls Club is very well funded when you look at some of these other nonprofit agencies. So I think if we are giving them $35,000 for the fencing, I think that should be it.
Any other input? Then can we move to City of Prescott?
Are we going to agree on that? Or are we just,
The idea is to keep moving down until you decide how much you want to spend. Okay, City of Prescott. And
Yes.
Mike, highlight it a little, hit it again, if you will.
For sure. So this is the first of two City of Prescott projects. This one is coming from Parks and Recreation Department. They are requesting $75,000, some other funding of $3,000, and the subcommittee recommendation was for $35,000. This is for the ADA compliant accessible restroom at the Community Nature Center out there on Williamson Valley Road, next to Abaya Judd. Not Abaya Judd, Grannon Middle School. Abaya? Yeah.
Yes, that's correct. And again, if I can bring this committee back to see what your average score is as we're moving down with this group. So, any other for the ADA compliant
Madam
bathrooms?
Chair, Ginger Cutting, so my question is this, they're asking for 75. They have a 3,000 from another source. We're giving them, if we're allotting 35,000, what makes me think that they're going to have the additional funds to complete that? Is that just going to be a stale project until they receive other funds? They don't have any other opportunity for any other funds. I'd rather see we either fund it or are those funds at 35,000 utilized to another program a little bit better that would complete a project?
Michael?
We absolutely have seen projects come online that, their first round of funding is usually CDBG, like that CDBG as their seed funding. And the case with Parks and Rec and the project they did before with the pavers were, from my understanding, we didn't fund their whole project. They asked for $100,000 for the paving the trail over there, and we ended up funding $50,000, and then they were able to come up through other funding sources another $50,000. So that it's not showing other funding source amount that's secured just yet is it's not great, but it's also not bad either. It's can be a bit par for the course in some cases.
To continue that question, so if they do not, they have 1 year to use those funds, and if they do not, those funds are returned?
So they have 3 years. So with construction projects, they do have 3 years to finish their project. And the pavers, it took them about 2 years. So we probably wouldn't, I'm thinking it'll probably be maybe this time next year if we fund them that they might get started. So we're a year out.
Madam Chair, John Paris. I'm very familiar with ADA. That was part of my whole career. I hesitate to say that we should give money to the city of Prescott to do something that's already mandated by federal law. It should have been done by now, in my opinion. So I'm just a little hesitant when it comes to dealing with one taxing source giving money to another taxing source.
Okay. Michael? I'm
Madam
sorry.
Chair, Jim Howell. Yeah, I too wrestled for many years with ADA, and it was a never-ending wrestling match too. But I found that when you would start to make improvements on a property, then all of a sudden the ADA would come to the top of the list. Until you take out permits on a facility, you're kind of grandfathered in. Everything lays low until you wake it up. So to me, it seems reasonable. And for CIP projects like this, it's customary to go out and solicit funds from various options until you have enough money, and then you pull the trigger and start. So I'm accustomed to holding money for 3-5 years until you can finally fund it. So I'm a supporter in it.
Point taken. Michael?
Well, in regards to another point that I have with this one, so say they weren't able to secure the rest of the funds, that money would come back to us. We wouldn't lose it. We would be able to use it down the road at the end of the 3 years. So it just goes back into the pot, so it doesn't disappear.
Okay. So let's move on down to the Dexter, another City of Prescott project, flood mitigation.
Right. City of Prescott Public Works requesting $100,000 and other funding sources of $100,000, and the subcommittee is recommended $15,000 for this.
And again, that average scoring, we're at 83 with them. And I know that was probably the largest amount that was requested. But again, they explained to it what they had to do and what they had to go through. So I'm going to open this up again for discussion from board members. What do you think about the Dexter flood mitigation?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ginger Cutting. So I honestly, Janie, what we talked about earlier, whereas if they had other source of funding, they've got 100,000, they're asking for 100,000. I don't feel that we should be contributing our nonprofit type of funds to an area that is not inclusive of necessarily all of the low to moderate income people. In that Dexter community, I can tell you, I'd be happy to pull up a list of the home ownership in that area, and many of them are so financially strong that they wouldn't need these funds. So I think that it's been 100 years that we've been around, and that Dexter area has been a problem, and the city of Prescott needs to fix it. And I don't think that nonprofit funds should go to that. I think there's other organizations that are in much need that are true nonprofit organizations that 15,000 could use. I would rather move that 15,000 into the ADA bathroom than I would give it to the Dexter project, because I believe that the ADA bathroom is fitting more of the people that these funds are anticipated to go to than a community that has been bought up and owned. And yes, we have some folks there who are renting perhaps and who might fall into that low to moderate income, but I can tell you there's a lot of owners in that area that have a lot of money that if they really felt that they needed to do improvements, they could participate.
Okay. Jim?
Jim Howell, I like Ginger's concept. It's still, I don't know, I think charity starts in the home. It's still keeping it as a city allocation, but moving it into the ADA, into the Parks project. I support that, Ginger.
Deb?
Deb Savoini. To me, this is like a $200,000 project, and 15,000 is just a drop in the bucket. Let's move it to something that will have more impact.
All right. So I have an opinion. HUD is funding, and we're directed that way to the low and moderate income. And the city of Prescott has designated some boundaries. And yes, we have supported that area with sidewalks and other type of things. I will agree with Ginger to a degree. Those homes have been sold. They have changed ownership. It's not quite the same Dexter area that it was 10 years, 15, 20 years ago, but it's still the same Dexter area that City of Prescott is working on. So as a token, Debbie's comment at 15,000, what's it going to do? One more time, City of Prescott has applied for CDBG grants. They understand what they are. It is a start of what they're trying to do in length of time. And I always find it interesting when you want City of Prescott to come up with that funding, which is us. We're the City of Prescott. It's our tax money. It's what we do and how the city's run. This HUD money has been a olive branch, a gifting to us, and there's quite a few. We see this construction project. So again, I'd like to discuss it a little bit more, and we'll move on to the next.
The one thing I'd like to interject, Madam Chair, is this year was very unusual because of the number of the construction projects. And I've just 2 years doing this. The last couple of years, we didn't hit that max, you know. So we had a ton of construction projects, and I don't know if that's going to be next year as well. Usually, or what HUD highlights, HUD does want the CDBG money used by the city. A lot of the times that's in infrastructure, right? They do want these big construction projects by municipalities. You know, there are a lot of communities, usually the bigger cities, that don't have committees. It's just done all internally. And usually it's pretty much, the money is kind of pigeonholed with these city projects. So not unusual for CDBG is what I'm trying to say.
All right. Ginger, more?
Thank you, Ginger Cutting. I want to say that I'm very grateful to have a board that kind of oversees and oversees the opportunity to assist nonprofit agencies instead of just a political bureaucracy where the funds go from federal to city and then out without any discretion by the community. And I would imagine that's why the city of Prescott put us up here. So I think that having an opportunity to help our nonprofits get a leg up is exactly why we're here, and I'm very grateful for that.
For sure. Yeah, we're pretty fortunate for our setup that the big cities just don't do so.
So I think we need to move our screen up because we have the community covered. And there it is.
Yes. So with Prescott Community Covered, they asked for $25,000. They have some other funding sources of $25,000, and the subcommittee funded at 100%. And notice they didn't have the highest average score, and I'll leave that up to the subcommittee to explain their reasoning behind that.
In being on that subcommittee, there was discussion, and they were brought up because they were sort of on the second page, but we're certainly open to any comment that if you think that's a great organization, but you don't quite see the funding there, we're open to that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ginger Cutting. I think that the community covered food bank is a wonderful organization. I think they were being conservative when they asked for their initial amount. I think that they could absolutely use everything that we could have to throw at them for assistance in their construction.
Thank you. So let's move on down. The launch pad.
This was the last one that was funded by the subcommittee or recommendation for funding. They requested $30,600 for parking lot replacement, also to help it come into ADA compliance for volunteers and some of their ADA clients, teenagers. Funding recommendation was $16,750.
So this was the last, and from that, you have another 4 that we chose to sort of take those off the list and work on the top. Any discussion on what was not funded?
Debbie Saving, I would agree with what we've seen, that these last 4 were not, I'll just say, worthy of funding. And I appreciate that the committee also designated that these were given 0 funding.
So if that consensus agreed, they drop off. So where do we start with the discussion that we just finished to decide what to do with the $7,500?
Right, and moving around the funds, if y'all do decide to do that. Let me, Darren, can you bring up the spreadsheet? Or IT is going to try to work off the spreadsheet. Again, make sure as you're discussing this part of it, see if you can enlarge it a little bit. Yeah, perfect. I think that's good right there. Okay, so let's go ahead and zero out the center. And then you'll see at the bottom, that's what's left to spend, $7,500. And so at this point, the committee would list suggestions how we want to do this.
Madam Chair, Ginger Cutting, I am going to recommend that we take that 7,500 and place it 7,500, 7,500, and place it. Well, let me back up for just a moment. I believe that we were going to. I'm going to back up for a second before I say 7,500. I'm going to recommend that we take 15,000 from the city of Prescott and move it to the 35,000 city of Prescott for the ADA bathroom.
A second on her recommendation,
Jim Howell, I'll second it.
and with that second,
Just do a consensus. Consensus is fine.
what is,
A consensus of if everybody's okay. You don't have to officially vote on it.
maybe I don't agree with that.
Okay, absolutely. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Madam Chair. I spoke out of turn.
And I understand that, but there was a second.
Right.
Now we can vote. Those in favor to move the 15 from the city to the ADA, please raise your hand. That is 2-4. Those opposed? 2 opposed. So that motion moves, that money moves to ADA.
Darren, did you see that? So Public Works, the 15,000 would be added to the top number. That's right, bringing it to 50,000.
Okay, with that being done, next suggestion.
Madam Chair, this is John Paris. So we have $7,500. I would suggest that we split that evenly between Meals on Wheels and Agave House.
Debbie Savoini, I would second it.
All right, it's been
Make it go over what they're requesting.
it's been seconded by Debbie Savoini. Let's discuss it. We seem to have a little bit of a sidebar. John,
500 additional.
so the discussion is, are you going over?
We have, 7,000, 3,250, right?
So that means 3,750 added to each one of those.
Right. So Agave House would be 22,750. Meals on Wheels.
So, John, for the rest of the board, we need to know what you've come up with.
Okay, Madam Chair, John Paris. That means Meals on Wheels would get $15,510, and Agave House would get $22,750, both of them below what they have requested.
Ginger Cutting making a clarification. The adding, isn't it $3,500?
30, no.
Adding 3,750 to 11,750 comes to 15,500.
Are you working these numbers, Michael?
Right, Darren. If you heard the committee, they're splitting the 7,500 in half, adding half to, I think that's 3,750 to Meals on Wheels, and then the other half, 3,750 to Agape House. So he's doing it right now. And if we get a zero number at the bottom, then we're solid. There you go.
Madam Chair, I am going to move to approve the revisions that we've made.
And would you verbally state that?
I am going to recommend that we provide $50,000 to the city of Prescott for their ADA restroom. I'm going to recommend that we apply $15,500 to Meals on Wheels for their kitchen equipment. Recommend that we apply $35,000 to the Boys and Girls Club for their safety fencing project. $22,750 to Agape House for their construction. $25,000 to the food bank cupboard, and $16,750 to the launch pad for their asphalt improvement.
I need a second.
Madam Chair, I will second that. This is Janie Evans.
Discussion on amounts? Any further discussion as to how this process worked with the added responsibility we had today?
Just a comment, Madam Chair. This is John Paris. If we're not careful here, we might know what we're doing.
Don't add any humor to this. We're very serious. All right, that has been the motion. It's been seconded. All those in favor, and this takes care of the construction rankings, please raise your hand.
And Jim Howell will not be voting on this as I'm recusing myself.
I'm still good. All right, that's 4. Debbie? 5, and the motion passes.
Okay. All right. Well, that is it. Excellent. Not that painful. So very good job. Thank you very much. Let me go into staff announcements and really just covering the next step of this process. We don't have the exact numbers from HUD yet. Hopefully that'll happen in the next month or so. That number could be more than 250,000. It could be less than 250,000. My job is to put all these projects and activities into the annual action plan, which I'll be presenting to the committee as well before it goes to City Council for final approval. Hopefully by that point, when I bring that annual action plan draft, you'll see exact numbers. And I'll make adjustments. And if you don't like the adjustments that I'm making, it's going to be weighted. And I might ask for guidance on some of them. There'll be an opportunity to make it right. So also with that annual action plan, we're still doing our consolidated plan. The annual action plan this year will be in connection with our consolidated plan sent to the council at the same time. I'm thinking it'll probably be June this year instead of the end of May. And that's where we're at. Any questions?
I do, since this process is over with the new members, do you feel your subcommittee can do its work before it brings to the board? Do you understand how we did this first layer first before we came to start changing some of the things? Yes, no?
Jim Howell, I think it was beneficial to come in with a list of recommendations, and you analyzed the composite of all of our scores. I think it was time well spent. Sorry I couldn't make it.
Any other?
Ginger cutting, I think it was very beneficial having a subcommittee, number one. I think the scoring was a little different. I would not necessarily agree or disagree on whether or not a nonprofit should utilize the funds based on the scoring value, because I think there were certain nonprofits that perhaps did not have the support to prepare the paperwork needed to get the accurate scoring. So I think looking at the different ones and having them speak publicly to us was very important for being a new person on this. I do have a question, Michael, before we go. So say that we get some kind of a whirlwind, $300,000. What happens to that? difference?
So if, I was thinking, last year we got 268 or 269,000, which was, the most we've seen for a while. I'd have to come back to the committee in regards to, especially the public service. Say we get a lot of money and we max out those three, and there's extra money in there. I would be asking the committee, do we want to fund another public service with the leftover because we can't go over what they asked for? Or, and this will probably the direction you guys would go, I don't know, but I think it would go this way, is that money would go towards a construction project. Because we have a cap on public service, 15,000. We don't have a cap on construction. So that would be my recommendation. If there's an overage in public service, put it towards a construction project.
Follow up, since we have 3 years, could we not roll that money over?
The 3 years is, no, they want you to allocate all the money in a single year. So the 3 years represents the length of time a project, an applicant has to expend their funds before we claw back. The city claws back. So it doesn't, the only time there's a rollover is if for whatever reason that applicant does not spend the money, or doesn't, maybe they spend most of it, just not all of it. And after that 3 years, it goes back into the pot.
Last question, I promise.
Yes.
What about recap and review of the past year applicants and awards?
Absolutely, and I believe that's been recommended by Mr. Howe. I can bring to our next meeting an update of where the money is and what's being spent out. So they give us a ratio we have to keep under. I don't know what the ratio exactly represents. HUD does. They track it. We have to keep it under 1.5. And we're at 1.48, which is pretty standard. So,
And I know I said last, but one more follow-up. It would be beneficial, I think, for next year is if we had the last 5 years progress to see who the recipients are and what they've done and if they've fulfilled it, so that if these same applicants come in the future, those who are newer on the board, we would be able to look at that and say, okay, they were allotted this amount of money, but it wasn't utilized or they didn't meet the time guideline. That'd be helpful.
Absolutely. I think that's a good idea. So.
Jim Howell, I agree with Ginger, and I think it'd also be beneficial, Mike, if we could have the spreadsheets with all the proposers and their requested amounts so we can adjust as we're working on it, because it was kind of cumbersome to sort these out. So if we could have it in the beginning instead of the end.
For like today's meeting, you mean, or?
Even for the proposals.
Oh, right. Okay, like a spreadsheet showing. Okay. And next year, now that the new members have been through the process, I'm going to do that same committee, put it on the agenda where we go through the ranking sheet again, and then that'll be an opportunity that we can all talk and see how we can change it, what y'all need to make this even better. So.
Madam Chair and Michael, I would like to suggest too that we review the ranking sheet and see if we can make some improvements to
Absolutely. For sure. I think I got pretty much a consensus that everyone wants to kind of look at that and make some updates, and we'll do it for sure.
So, Debbie Savoini, I have a question. What are you saying that needs to be changed? What was hard for the committee this time?
Just think, for one example that I'll give you that I think we could make some improvements in, like for one of the questions is, have you been a past recipient? And I think that scores like a 10. And, well, just to give that as an example, and I thought, geez, that's a lot, that just because we've given them money before, why does that score so high? I can't remember everything, right, but I just thought if we all sit down as a committee and go through it, maybe we can make it better.
And we ginger cutting, and some of the other funding sources. And I think that
that's in there too.
right, and some of them didn't indicate it, but I kind of believe that they have other funding sources. So that goes to question, I guess. I don't know.
I'm going to defend a little bit of the process because I've seen it far worse. And this is condensed, and truly the questions that were asked and shown were pretty concise. It, to me, was the smaller application. Deb, you got to agree. And so, Michael, you're on the highway. We'll see what your new members want. But to cover some of those and be ready, I want to appreciate everyone that showed up to all the meetings. Your input, as I've said before, we're doing the best job we can with what we have. I'm sorry our new member did not make this, and if you can sort of find out if there was something wrong, we need to know. But this has moved. We've been on schedule, calendar. Everything is done what it's supposed to do. So thank each and every one of you.
So I have a question for Jim. Because when we started, well, before we went to committee, before this went to committee, I was very concerned that you were not going to be able to have a voice. Do you still feel that way? Jim? One of the days.
I answer to a lot of so no, I'm very comfortable with how this worked out in the whole committee, and I had the pleasure of being the public at the subcommittee, and I was very pleased with the outcome and the way that it was handled. So yes, I feel better.
Then I'm going to say right now we're at 2:38. I need a motion to adjourn,
I second that.
and we're adjourned.